Why did the room fall silent the moment she walked in, as if everyone knew something she did? Sarah Blackwood felt it before she saw it, that subtle shift in posture, the stiffening of shoulders, the downward glances that pretended not to notice her presence. 25 years as a Navy SEAL had taught her to read a room the same way others read weather. The Wyoming training facility was supposed to be neutral ground, a place for refining new protocols, evaluating combat readiness, and preparing younger operators for deployments they didn't yet understand. Yet from the moment she stepped into the morning briefing, something had been off. A tension hidden beneath polite nods, a resentment too practiced to be accidental. She ignored it as she always did. Respect wasn't something she asked for. It was something earned in valleys few had crossed, in nights that smelled like gunpowder and fear, in helicopter cabins filled with the wounded and the dying. Still, something about today felt different. By dusk the building had emptied, leaving only the hum of ventilation and the metallic click of cooling machinery. Sarah walked alone through the East Wing corridor, the cold light drawing harsh lines across her face. 48 years old, but her eyes still held the clarity of a soldier who had survived things that never made it into mission briefings. Her father's M1911 rested against her hip, a symbol, a promise, a piece of him she carried because words between them had always been scarce. She was supposed to review the simulation room before tomorrow's demonstration, a routine task, simple, structured, predictable. Except as she approached the junction, she felt it again. A disturbance, a shift, like the air itself grew heavier. Then she saw it, a shadow sliding unnaturally across the far wall. Sarah stopped. The corridors were supposed to be empty. Everyone had clocked out, drifting toward the barracks or the mess hall. No drills scheduled, no night ops, no reason for anyone to be here. She listened, really listened. One heartbeat. Her own. Another controlled, intentional, someone trying not to be heard. Her muscles tightened. Not fear, instinct. The instinct of someone who had been ambushed in alleyways in Kandahar, on rooftops in Mogadishu, beneath collapsing structures in Fallujah. She knew the rhythm of danger, knew its taste. And tonight, danger tasted familiar. Earlier that day, she had caught Sergeant James Mercer staring at her during the protocol briefing, not with curiosity, but with something sharper, uglier. The Marine had muttered something under his breath, something about standards dropping, about political correctness ruining the brotherhood. Sarah had let it go. She spent her career enduring that tone. She had learned long ago that some battles weren't fought with weapons but with silence. But silence had limits. She approached the turn in the corridor slowly, her fingertips brushing the grip of the pistol though she kept it holstered. Drawing prematurely could escalate whatever this was, and Sarah didn't escalate unless she had to. A faint shift, air displaced, a foot repositioning. She inhaled. Not afraid, just ready. 25 years of muscle memory, aligned inside her like tumblers in a lock. She moved. The tactical simulation room loomed ahead, vast and unlit, its open doorway a mouth of darkness. She entered cautiously, eyes trying to adjust, and that was when the lights died completely, plunging everything into black. She didn't move. Movement revealed position, stillness bought seconds. Then a voice, low and vibrating with rage, slid across the dark. "Women like you don't belong here." Mercer. The echo bounced off the training structures, making it impossible to pinpoint where he was. A deliberate tactic. He'd planned this. "You think you're operators," he continued, each word dripping venom, "while real warriors die cleaning up your mess." Sarah didn't answer immediately. Her breathing slowed. Her hand hovered near her pistol but did not draw, not yet. "Mercer," she finally said, calm, measured, steady. "If you have a problem, we can talk outside this room." He laughed, a sound without warmth. "Talk, that's all you people do. Talk and ruin everything." A metallic click. the unmistakable sound of a weapon being readied. Sarah's heart rate didn't spike. What spiked instead was clarity. The exit was too far, the main door likely blocked, the room built with blind corners and movable walls perfect for concealment, perfect for an ambush. He had chosen this room for a reason. "You don't know me," she said softly. "You don't know anything about what I've done." "Oh, I know enough," he hissed. 25 years riding the wave, tokens, quotas, stealing slots from real soldiers. The pipe came out of nowhere, slicing through the darkness with a whooshing snarl. Sarah dropped instinctively, the metal cracking against the wall where her head had been a heartbeat earlier. Dust rained down. Her mind sharpened. She rolled, came up in a crouch. Pain flickered in her shoulder as Mercer lunged, a thick silhouette in the dim emergency glow starting to flicker online. He swung again, wild but powerful. Sarah sidestepped, elbowing his sternum with precision. The breath left him in a grunt, but Mercer was strong and angry. Rage gave him stamina. He recovered, charging with renewed fury, the pipe raised high. "You don't belong here," he roared. Her shoulder screamed as the next blow grazed her, sending a bolt of pain down her arm. She stumbled back, colliding with a concrete barrier. For the first time, vulnerability flashed across her face. He saw it and he smiled. But Sarah's fear was never the enemy. She had been afraid in places most people couldn't imagine, bleeding, outnumbered, lost in terrains where maps meant nothing. Fear had never once stopped her. Tonight would not be the first time. She centered herself. Training flowed through her like electricity, the old teachings of instructors who had pushed her harder than any battlefield ever could. Mercer rushed again. But Sarah was no longer stumbling. She caught his forearm, pivoted, and let his own weight betray him. His knees hit the floor with a crack. The pipe clattered away into the shadows. Before he could rise, she pinned him, her knee pressing between his shoulder blades, one arm twisted in a hold designed not to cripple, but to control. "I could have killed you," she whispered, her voice low, dangerous, and heartbreakingly calm. 3 times. He struggled, rage turning to disbelief. "You got lucky." "No," she said, tightening the hold until he winced. "Luck doesn't keep you alive for 25 years. Skill does." For a moment he went still, not defeated, processing, realizing, understanding. Maybe for the first time, he saw her. The emergency lights cast the room in red, like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. Sarah kept him pinned with one arm while reaching for her comm device with the other. "This ends now," she said, "and not with blood. We are supposed to be better than this." Security stormed in minutes later. They pulled Mercer away, shouting, confused, overwhelmed by the scene they hadn't expected. Colonel Patterson entered last. His eyes caught her bruised shoulder. "Commander Blackwood, are you injured?" "Just a reminder that I'm not 20 anymore," she replied with a faint breath, straightening her uniform. "We need to talk, sir. This wasn't an isolated issue." And as they escorted Mercer out, his eyes burning with a shame he didn't yet know how to hide, Sarah felt something heavy settle inside her. Not victory. Not fear. Something harder. Something honest. A question she had buried for years. How many more battles like this would she have to fight? Not on foreign soil, but within the walls that were supposed to protect her. What was she supposed to say when the man who attacked her refused to look her in the eyes? 3 days had passed since the ambush in the simulation room, but the echo of Mercer's rage still followed Sarah like a shadow down the sterile hallways of the Wyoming facility. Her shoulder still throbbed under the fabric of her uniform, a deep, pulsing reminder of the moment his pipe had clipped her bone. The pain didn't bother her. Pain was familiar, manageable, a companion. It was the silence that bothered her. Whispers weren't new. Rumors weren't new. But something deeper had begun shifting within the unit. a kind of quiet reckoning carried in sideways glances, hushed conversations that died the moment she entered the room. And today, she was being escorted to face the military review panel. Not as a defendant, not as a victim, but as a warning. The corridor leading to the hearing room stretched long and bright, sunlight spilling across the floor in thin, gold lines through the tall windows. The world outside looked impossibly calm, mountains layered like folded paper, the wind brushing against the earth as if nothing terrible had happened inside these walls. Sarah walked with her hands clasped behind her back, her step steady. She'd faced insurgents with RPGs, hostiles in alleyways with machetes, drones overhead targeting her team with terrifying precision. A panel of senior officers did not frighten her. Still, the ache in her chest told her something else entirely. She was tired. Not of service. Never of service. She was tired of the battles no one wrote commendations for, the invisible ones fought in rooms where the enemy wore the same uniform. She paused outside the heavy double doors. A young Marine guard opened them with a crisp nod. "Commander Blackwood, the panel is ready for you." Inside, a long table stretched across the far wall. 3 officers sat behind it, uniforms crisp, faces impassive. General Janet Wolfenberger, stern, brilliant, respected, occupied the center seat. Beside her, Colonel Patterson. On the far end, Brigadier Hayes, who had once told Sarah she was too quiet to lead a special operations team. Funny how people mistook silence for weakness. She stood at attention. "Commander Blackwood," Wolfenberger began, "take a seat." Sarah nodded and sat, back straight, hands resting calmly on her knees. Patterson spoke first. "You neutralized a Marine NCO using controlled force and minimal injury, despite being ambushed in total darkness. That alone is commendable, but this isn't about your response. It's about what created the attack." Hayes leaned forward. "Do you believe your presence here influenced his actions?" A strange question. Sarah chose her words carefully. "My presence didn't create his beliefs," she said quietly. "It revealed them." Wolfenberger's expression softened only slightly. "Commander, you've served longer than any female operator in active special operations history. You've seen transitions, losses, victories, culture shifts. What happened 3 nights ago was not an isolated incident. We've had 3 complaints across 3 different bases. You were the only one targeted with force." Sarah inhaled once slowly. "I don't believe Mercer intended to kill me," she said. Hayes raised an eyebrow. "He swung a metal pipe at your skull." "Yes," she replied, meeting his gaze. "But intent is different from impulse. Mercer attacked what he believed I represented change, not me as a person." Patterson nodded, though his jaw tightened. "So you're saying this wasn't a personal vendetta?" "No, sir, it was a cultural fracture." The room fell silent. Wolfenberger sat back. "Commander Blackwood, what do you think needs to change?" She paused, not because she didn't know the answer, but because speaking truth aloud always came with weight. "The standards should never change," she said softly, "but the culture must. You can't hold operators to a single bar and then tell half of them the bar isn't theirs to reach." Hayes stared at her. "Are you implying integration training is insufficient?" "I'm implying it's superficial," she replied, her tone calm but unyielding. "Respect isn't learned in PowerPoints. It's learned in trust, in mentorship, in accountability, in working alongside people you don't understand until you finally do." Patterson steepled his fingers. "And if we implement this, what then?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "Then Mercer's attack becomes the catalyst for progress," she said quietly, "not the proof that progress failed." The panel exchanged glances, a silent debate, coded and wordless. Finally, Wolfenberger spoke. "Commander," she said, her voice firm, "your proposals will be implemented immediately. Mandatory integration training, cross-unit mentorship, zero-tolerance policy for gender-based hostility, and you will oversee the program." Sarah blinked once, slowly. The weight of that responsibility was immense, heavier than any mission pack she had carried through mountains or deserts. "Understood," she said. Hayes cleared his throat. "There's also the matter of Sergeant Mercer's future." "His fate isn't mine to decide," Sarah replied instantly. But Wolfenberger shook her head. "His rehabilitation program includes attending your training and eventually addressing the next generation of operators." Sarah stiffened. "With respect, ma'am, what could Mercer possibly teach them?" Wolfenberger's expression did not waver. "That even the hardest men can recognize when they were wrong." The meeting ended in silence, the kind that came not from discomfort, but from the slow shifting of something larger than any single person at the table. When Sarah stepped outside, the hallway felt too quiet. Her boots echoed against the floor as she walked, each step stirring memories she never spoke of: nights crawling through rubble, mornings waking to names missing from the roster, promises whispered into the dust of forgotten cities. On the far end of the corridor, someone stood waiting. A young woman in uniform, early 20s, nervous, eyes bright with something Sarah recognized instantly. "Hope." The lieutenant snapped to attention. "Commander Blackwood," she said breathlessly. I wanted to tell you what you did, what you survived. It's why I'm trying out for Bud S next year." Sarah studied her, the determination, the innocence, the fire. "The standards won't be lowered for you," Sarah said gently. "I don't want them lowered, ma'am. I just want the chance to meet them." For a moment, Sarah saw herself 25 years ago, smaller, younger, shaking with exhaustion on the cold concrete of Hell Week. She remembered the instructors shouting, the cold water, the ropes, the endless miles. But mostly, she remembered the doubt. Not theirs. Her own. She put a hand on the young woman's shoulder. "Then I'll see you on the other side of hell," Sarah said softly. The lieutenant's eyes shone. "Thank you, ma'am." And then she slipped away, leaving Sarah alone with the echo of her footsteps. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Sarah realized something. The fight she'd been avoiding, the hidden one, the cultural one, was no longer optional. She hadn't chosen this battle. But she would win it. Not with force. Not with rank. But with proof. Proof that strength did not belong to men or women. It belonged to warriors. Why did the room feel heavier the moment he walked in, as if even the air wasn't sure what to do with him? It had been a month since the night Mercer attacked her. 30 days of reform meetings, program drafting, briefing videos, and mandatory training modules that made half the unit roll their eyes until they realized this time things weren't optional. Sarah had kept her distance from Mercer during the process, not out of fear, she felt none, but out of something more complicated, something she wasn't ready to name. Forgiveness wasn't hard for her, but forgetting, that was its own battlefield. The command center was packed with operators from different units, the buzz of morning chatter tapering off as Colonel Patterson stepped to the front. Behind him, a projection screen glowed with the title, Integration and Operational Cohesion, Phase 1 Debrief. Sarah stood toward the side, hands clasped lightly behind her back, posture calm but unmistakably authoritative. She wasn't leading the session, not this one. Patterson insisted Mercer be the first voice the candidates heard. A consequence. A lesson. A mirror. The door opened quietly, heads turned, conversations died. Sergeant James Mercer walked in. But not the same Mercer who attacked her. His uniform was still sharp, but his posture was. His shoulders had lost that cocky elevation. His eyes didn't scan for allies. He moved softer, slower, as if aware that every step he took was being measured. He was a man carrying the weight of both shame and something new, understanding. He did not look at her. Not once. Patterson gave him a slight nod. Sergeant, whenever you're ready. Mercer stepped forward, facing the rows of male and female candidates seated before him. They watched him the way students watch a grenade someone insists is safe to hold. He cleared his throat. I'm not going to read a statement, he began, voice steady but strained. I was told to write one. I threw it out. A ripple moved through the room. Mercer swallowed once, visibly. I spent most of my career believing something that felt like truth because everyone around me believed it too. That we had a certain way of doing things, a certain type of person who belonged, and that if anything threatened that, it was my job to push back. He paused, jaw tightening. I told myself I was protecting tradition, protecting standards, protecting the brotherhood. A beat of silence. Turns out, I was protecting nothing but my own fear. The room was still. Even the ventilation seemed to hush. Mercer kept his eyes forward. The night I attacked Commander Blackwood, I convinced myself she didn't deserve her place in this uniform. I didn't even know her. Didn't know her missions, her record, her losses. I was blinded by an idea someone else planted in me years ago that strength looks one way, acts one way, belongs to one kind of soldier. His voice dropped to something almost vulnerable. Commander Blackwood proved me wrong in 30 seconds. Some of the candidates glanced toward her. Sarah remained still, her face unreadable. Mercer exhaled heavy. She could have killed me, the way I came at her. Any operator would have justified it in a report, but she didn't. She held back, controlled, precise, professional, and for the first time in my life, I realized how small my definition of strength really was. He looked down briefly at the floor, then back up. So if you're sitting there right now, man or woman, thinking someone doesn't belong here because they don't look like you, or sound like you, or match the picture you grew up with, he shook his head. You're not defending the military. You're weakening it. A faint tremor in his voice, not from fear. From truth. Patterson folded his arms. Wolfenberger, watching from the back, nodded imperceptibly. Mercer continued, quieter now. We don't get to choose who stands beside us when things go wrong out there. The battlefield doesn't care about gender or tradition or who thinks what's fair. It only cares about capability, integrity, and discipline. He took a breath, steadying himself. And for what it's worth, Commander Blackwood has more of that than I ever did. That line broke the room's stillness, not with noise but with something else, absorption, reflection, the kind of silence that meant everyone was listening now, even the ones who thought they were. Mercer stepped back. That's all. Patterson dismissed him. Mercer nodded once and walked out, never once allowing his eyes to drift toward the woman whose restraint had saved him from becoming a cautionary tale in a far darker way. When the door shut, a strange quiet lingered. Wolfenberger approached Sarah. You expected something different, the general asked softly. Sarah shook her head. No, I expected honesty, and he gave more than I thought he had. Wolfenberger's eyes softened. He's ashamed, you know. I know. And ashamed of more than the attack. Sarah glanced at her. Of what then? Wolfenberger lowered her voice. Of how long he let other people decide what he should think. Silence, then Sarah nodded faintly. It takes courage to rebuild beliefs, she murmured, more than people realize. Wolfenberger placed a hand on her shoulder, careful of the healing bruises beneath the fabric. You're starting a storm, Commander, a necessary one. Storm? Yes, she felt it too. A shift beneath the surface of the institution she'd served her entire adult life. Progress wasn't a clean thing. It was jagged, uncomfortable, loud in the places where silence once ruled. Later that afternoon, Sarah walked alone through the courtyard behind the facility. Snow from the early mountain cold clung to the edges of benches, melting slowly under the weak sun. She sat, letting the cold metal seep through her uniform. She had thought the Mercer incident would be another scar she'd bury beneath the others, but change had begun to ripple outward in ways she hadn't expected. Young operators greeted her now, asked her questions, watched her with genuine curiosity instead of suspicion. Yet something inside her stayed unsettled. A heaviness, not dread, not regret, something closer to grief. She had spent her whole life fighting battles with clear objectives: rescue a hostage, extract a target, survive until exfil. But this, changing minds, shifting culture, defending her place not on the battlefield but in the perception of others. This was a different kind of war, one she wasn't sure she was ready for, and one she couldn't walk away from. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She frowned, opened it, and read slowly. "Ma'am, it's Mercer. I know I'm not supposed to contact you directly, but I wanted to say thank you, not for sparing me, for showing me who I really was." She stared at the words for a long moment. Then she deleted the message without replying. Not out of anger, not out of dismissiveness, but because some apologies weren't meant to be conversations. They were meant to be closures. The sun dipped lower. The mountains lengthened their shadows across the compound, and in that fading light, Sarah realized something else, something she had ignored for years because admitting it meant confronting a loneliness she had buried under mission briefs and deployments. She had spent her life proving she deserved to be here. Maybe it was time to let the institution prove it deserved her. Why did it feel like the room was waiting for her answer, even before anyone asked a question? The briefing chamber was too bright, too cold, too full. Operators from 5 different units filled the rows in front of her, some leaning forward, others slouched with folded arms, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and unease simmering beneath the surface. They weren't here for a mission briefing. They were here for the first day of the program she had been tasked to lead. Integration and Cultural Cohesion, Phase 1. A name too clean for what it represented. A fight, not against insurgents, but against ideas older than most of the soldiers in the room. Sarah stood beside the projector screen, hands clasped behind her back, posture straight enough to hide the fatigue creeping into her bones. Her shoulder ached, but she refused to show it. Pain was a whisper, discipline was louder. Colonel Patterson was finishing the introduction. And as of this morning, Commander Blackwood will take operational leadership of the Integration Reform Initiative. Her authority in this program is absolute. Any resistance will be documented. A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Sarah didn't flinch. Patterson stepped back. The room fell still. Every pair of eyes fixed on her. She took a breath, controlled, slow. "Before we start," she said, her voice steady but not loud, "I want to ask you all one question." A pause. "Why are you here?" Some shifted, others blinked. One recruit frowned as if he thought it was a trick. Sarah stepped forward. "You're not here because I'm a woman," she said. "You're not here because one Marine attacked me. You're not here because the military suddenly decided to be politically correct." She let her gaze move across them, not challenging, not accusing. Just steady. "You're here because something broke," she continued softly, "and the military does not tolerate broken things." A younger operator, big, broad-shouldered, maybe 24, raised a hand. "Ma'am, what exactly broke?" Sarah met his eyes. "Trust." The word hung in the air like a suspended breath. "You can train tactics," she said. "You can drill procedures, condition reflexes, memorize protocols. But trust isn't something an instructor can teach. Trust is something you build slowly." Another pause. "And lose all at once." Silence wrapped around the room. Sarah let it settle. "We're going to rebuild it," she said, "together." A voice from the back, sharper, older. What if some people don't want to rebuild it? Sarah didn't look toward the speaker. If they're wearing this uniform, she said quietly, then they already made the choice to serve something greater than their personal beliefs. The room felt like it shifted an inch. Not fully, not comfortably, but undeniably. And then, unexpectedly, someone new raised a hand. A woman this time, stern, focused, experienced. "Commander," she asked, "what about the ones who think we shouldn't be here?" Sarah's eyes softened just slightly. "Then we'll let our capability answer their doubts." Murmurs, agreement from some, discomfort from others. But this time the discomfort wasn't directed at her, it was directed inward. She turned toward the screen and clicked the remote. The lights dimmed. Photos, missions, operators standing shoulder to shoulder in terrains that didn't care about gender or tradition or ego. And finally, a photo of Unit Echo 7, her old team, the one shattered by a blast in the Korangal Valley years ago, the one that left her the last survivor. She didn't speak about them. Not yet. Instead, she clicked to the next slide. "This program isn't about telling you to like each other," she said. "It's about ensuring that when the time comes, you work together well enough to survive." She turned off the projector completely. "We're going outside." The training field was covered in frost, the early winter cold biting the tips of exposed fingers. Candidates shivered as they followed her into the vast open range. Targets were set at random distances. Obstacles rose like jagged teeth from the earth. A wind so sharp it could cut through Kevlar swept across the terrain. Sarah stepped into the center of the field. "You have 10 minutes," she said, "to form groups of 4 mixed, no exceptions." Immediately the discomfort returned. A few hesitated, drifting toward familiar faces. Some men avoided standing near the women as if closeness itself was a confession. Sarah watched. 10 minutes became 5. 5 became 3. Finally, she blew her whistle. "Freeze." The field fell silent. Some groups were well balanced. Others were painfully forced. One group had 3 women and 1 man, the man standing apart stiff, arms crossed in defiance. Sarah approached him. "Problem?" she asked quietly. His jaw tensed. "No, ma'am." "A hesitation is a problem," she said. "Talk." He swallowed. "I just don't want to be responsible for—" He stopped. The women in his group stared at him, their expressions a mix of insult and exhaustion. Sarah waited. "For what?" she pressed. He didn't respond. So she answered for him. "For their failure." His eyes flickered with shame. Sarah turned to the women. "And do you want to be responsible for his failure?" One of them shook her head. "No, ma'am." Sarah nodded once. "This isn't about responsibility," she said. "It's about reliability. If one of you falls, the rest compensate. That's the job." The man finally exhaled, shaky, uncomfortable, raw. "Yes, ma'am," he said quietly. She stepped back. "Good, now your task is simple." She pointed to the far edge of the field. "Reach the extraction point as a team." Someone asked, "With what rules, ma'am?" "No rules," she said. Then, after a beat, "Except one." They waited. No one finishes alone. For the next hour, she watched them struggle. Some teams failed early. Some succeeded. Some cracked under the weight of their own egos. But slowly, painfully, patterns emerged. A male recruit lifted a female teammate over a collapsed section of wall, the strength in his arms matched by the quiet respect in his eyes. 2 women pulled a heavier operator over a frost-slick obstacle, breathless and determined, disproving the doubt he didn't realize he carried until it shattered beneath the strain. And the man who resisted his group the most. He fell hard, twisted his ankle on uneven ground. The three women he doubted doubled back immediately, pulling him up, carrying his weight. They finished together. Sarah watched it all with a soft, almost invisible shift in her expression. Not pride, not vindication. Something deeper. Something closer to relief. When the last group crossed the line, she blew the whistle. The wind howled across the range. She spoke quietly, not a speech, a truth. Strength isn't a uniform you put on, she said. It's a responsibility you carry, and today all of you carried it. Their faces shifted subtly, walls lowering, doubts bending, not disappearing but bending. That was enough. As the sun dipped below the mountains, Patterson approached her. "You realize," he said, "this, whatever you're doing, it's working." Sarah didn't answer immediately. She looked at the field, the frost melting beneath boot prints, the echoes of effort still lingering in the air. Then she said quietly, "It's not my job to change them." Patterson frowned. "Then whose job is it?" "Their own," she replied. "I'm just giving them the chance." She turned away, feeling the cold settle into her bones. But there was something else beneath it, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the loud kind. The quiet, stubborn kind. The kind that survives. Why did her daughter always call at the exact moment she felt most alone? The phone buzzed in Sarah's pocket as she stepped out into the cold Wyoming night. The air was thin, star-bright, sharp enough to sting her lungs. Training had ended hours ago. The recruits had drifted back to the barracks with aching muscles and quieter egos. But Sarah stayed behind, walking the perimeter fence like she used to walk the last checkpoint of every deployed night, slow, scanning, listening, thinking. She finally answered the call. "Hey, Mom." Her daughter's voice, warm, familiar, both a comfort and a wound. "Hey, kid," Sarah murmured, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I saw the article," her daughter said. "The one about your new program, they quoted you." "Oh," Sarah tried for casual, failed. "What did it say?" "That you're pioneering cultural restructuring in special operations." The girl snorted. "Sounds fancy." Sarah smiled softly. "Press always makes things sound cleaner than they are." "I know." A pause. "Mom, are you okay?" A simple question, a dangerous one. Sarah leaned against the metal fence, watching her breath drift into the night like a fading signal flare. "I'm fine," she lied. Her daughter wasn't fooled, still hurting. "The shoulder," Sarah shrugged. "Just old bones reminding me I'm not 20. "That's not what I meant." Silence. Her daughter always saw the things Sarah spent her life hiding. She swallowed. "It's complicated." "You want to talk about it?" "No, but I probably should." Her daughter laughed softly, the same laugh Sarah used to hear when she tucked her into bed between deployments. "Then talk." So she did, slowly. "I've faced enemy fire, ambushes. I've been shot at, hunted, targeted, but this, what I'm doing now," she shook her head. "This is different. This is constant, invisible, like fighting smoke." "You mean people's beliefs?" "Yes," she whispered, "and those are harder to disarm than bombs." Her daughter's voice gentled, "But worth it." "Worth it," Sarah repeated. "I just didn't expect it to be so heavy." "Mom," the girl hesitated, "you don't have to be strong all the time." Sarah closed her eyes. "Yes, I do," she whispered. The words slipped out before she could catch them. Her daughter didn't argue, didn't correct her, just breathed softly on the other end of the line. "I'm proud of you," she said instead. "I always was." Sarah's chest tightened. "Thank you." "Okay, I'll let you sleep. Big day tomorrow." "Yes," Sarah rubbed her temple. "Another evaluation, more training scenarios, and Mercer's returning for a follow-up session." "Imam." "Yes." "Be careful." The phone clicked silent. Sarah lowered it slowly, tucking it back into her pocket. For the first time in days, she felt something like warmth. The next morning dawned with a thin, pale sunlight spilling across the training field. Frost still clung stubbornly to the ground. The recruits gathered again, half shivering, half ready to prove themselves. Sarah stood at the front, hands behind her back, expression neutral. But her attention drifted toward the far end of the group, where Mercer stood. Different uniform, reduced rank, eyes lowered. He avoided her gaze, not out of defiance, out of respect, or maybe shame. Patterson stepped forward. Today is scenario day. No lectures, no discussions. The recruit straightened. Commander Blackwood will run point. Sarah nodded once. This exercise evaluates reaction under uncertainty, she announced. You'll be divided into mixed squads. Your objective, locate the missing asset and extract. Someone raised a hand. Hostile zones, ma'am. All zones are hostile. Another voice, rules of engagement. One, she said, don't abandon your team. The scenario began with a siren blast. Sarah observed from the overlooked tower, scanning the field now transformed into a chaos of barricades, smoke, obscured sightlines, and unpredictable triggers. Immediately, problems surfaced. One group panicked at the first simulated floodlight, scattering like startled deer. Another argued over who should take point. A female recruit hesitated behind a male partner who kept stepping in front of her, blocking her line of fire, not maliciously, instinctively. A third team froze entirely when the hostile popped from behind a barrier. Sarah grimaced. Trust wasn't built in a day, but it could be shattered in minutes. She descended from the tower. Teams regroup, she shouted. The chaos died. Again, she said, reset. One of the younger men groaned under his breath, too quiet for others, but loud enough that she heard. She walked toward him. You disagree, Private. He stiffened. No, ma'am. Say it. A long breath. Ma'am, with respect, this feels pointless. These scenarios aren't real. Sarah stared at him. Walk with me. He hesitated, then followed. She led him to the edge of the field. The cold wind swept across them. You think this is easy? She asked. I think. She cut him off. I once lost my entire team in a valley because we hesitated, she said softly. 1 second, one mistake, one doubt in the wrong moment. The private swallowed. I carried 2 of them until my legs gave out, she continued. Dragged another through sand while bleeding, radioed for exfil with someone else's blood on my hands. His eyes widened, the bravado dying instantly. I'm not teaching you to shoot, she said. I'm teaching you to decide. He nodded silently. Get back in formation. The third run began differently. Slower, more deliberate. Trust forming in small, fragile ways. A man covering a woman's blind side without taking over the lead. A woman directing her team with clear, confident commands. A pair of recruits, both stubborn, both proud, finally synchronizing movement as they crossed a mock alley. But failure still lurked. Halfway through the course, a simulated explosion triggered. Smoke poured. The recruits panicked again. One recruit bolted toward the extraction zone. Alone. Sarah's voice cut through the field, sharp as a blade. Stop. Everyone froze. The recruit stopped mid-stride. She walked toward him, slow, controlled, each step like a verdict. Explain. He stammered. Ma'am, I thought I heard the extraction alarm. She stepped closer. What was the rule? He swallowed. No one finishes alone. And what did you do? His voice cracked. Left my team. She gestured around them. This is where beliefs matter, she said coldly. Not when you're safe, not when it's easy, but when the world is collapsing around you. That is when you reveal who you truly are. The recruit lowered his head. Reset, she ordered. The team reset. They went again. This time they didn't run. This time they didn't argue. This time they didn't hesitate. They completed the course together, panting, sweating, half-frozen but unified. Sarah exhaled softly. Progress. Slow. Painful. Real. As the sun dipped low, she dismissed the recruits. Mercer lingered. When the field finally emptied, he approached her carefully, not close, not assuming. "Commander," he said quietly, "may I speak?" She nodded once. "Go ahead." He looked at the ground. "I attended the scenario today because Patterson insists I complete every module, but I stayed because I wanted to." Sarah watched him. He continued, quieter. "I can't undo what I did," he said, "but I'm learning how I ended up becoming that man." Sarah's jaw softened. "Are you?" she asked. He nodded. "Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides as pride." She considered him for a long moment. Mercer bowed his head, not in weakness but in sincerity. "Thank you for not giving up on the rest of us," he said. Sarah's chest tightened in a way she didn't expect. "I didn't do this for you," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's why it's working." He left her alone on the field, the frost glittering beneath the setting sun, the mountains glowing orange, the air so still she could hear her own breath. Something inside her felt different. Not lighter, but steadier. As if the weight she carried had finally shifted into something with purpose. Something worth fighting for. Something bigger than her past. Something bigger than her pain. Something that might, finally, lead her toward a reckoning she had been avoiding for years. Why did the room fall silent the moment she stepped into it, silent in a way that felt almost expectant? It had been 8 weeks since the attack. 8 weeks since Mercer tried to break her. 8 weeks since the military handed her a task no medal would ever honor. Fixing the fractures inside a system she had bled for. Now the culmination of everything, every briefing, every argument, every long night rewriting protocols, was happening in this single room. The Integration Review Board. A long table. 8 senior officers. Half watching with curiosity. Half watching with caution. And some watching with fear of what her success meant for their tradition. Sarah entered, her uniform immaculate, her posture unbreakable, her expression calm but anchored in something heavier than steel. She walked to the center podium and placed her hands lightly on its edges. General Wolfenberger nodded. "Commander Blackwood, the floor is yours." Sarah swept the room with her eyes. Not intimidating. Not challenging. Just honest. 8 weeks ago, she began quietly, this facility experienced a violent breakdown in its chain of trust. A murmur. A shifting of posture. A few officers stiffened. Sarah continued. And that incident was not isolated. It was a symptom, a small eruption of a much deeper fault line. She looked down for a brief moment, not from weakness but from reflection. "I have spent my life in the field," she said. 12 deployments, 39 missions with live fire engagement, 25 years navigating terrains where death was the simplest truth. She looked up, eyes steady. "But nothing in a war zone ever compared to the battles we fight here." Silence deepened. She clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. Footage of the training teams, struggling, learning, failing, rebuilding themselves under the pressure of trust exercises that forced old beliefs to crack. Then Mercer's rehabilitation session. Then mixed teams coordinating fire and maneuver with seamless precision. Then the final training evaluations, scores higher than any previous year. "This is what happens," she said softly, "when we stop letting assumptions lead us." Wolfenberger watched her closely. Colonel Hayes leaned back, arms crossed. Patterson nodded to himself, pride flashing across his features. A younger officer, one Sarah didn't recognize, lifted a hand. What exactly did you change, Commander? Protocol, structure, culture? Sarah shook her head. No, she said, I changed opportunity. Another officer frowned. Opportunity. Yes, opportunity to speak, opportunity to listen, opportunity to unlearn. She paused. Opportunity to see each other as operators, not categories. The board exchanged glances that carried unspoken meaning. She continued. This wasn't a diversity initiative, she said. This was an operational necessity, because the battlefield doesn't care about comfort, it cares about competence. A faint nod came from Hayes, unexpected. She clicked to the next slide. Her voice softened. During this program, one recruit twisted his ankle on our scenario course. His team carried him across the finish line. More footage. 3 women and 1 man lifting a teammate together, their breaths visible in the cold. That is the military I've always believed in, she said. And that, Wolfenberger added quietly, is the military we must continue building. Sarah's eyes flicked toward her. Approval from Wolfenberger mattered. More than Sarah would ever admit out loud. Then the questions came. One officer. Commander, what was the biggest challenge? Sarah. Convincing people that strength does not have a gender. Another. What was the biggest surprise? Sarah. Seeing who resisted the change and who embraced it. Then the final question, one she'd sensed coming. Commander Blackwood, an older, gruff voice asked from the corner, after everything that happened, do you believe the institution deserves your trust? The room froze. Even Wolfenberger leaned back. Sarah inhaled slowly, deeply, the kind of breath she took right before clearing a doorway or stepping onto a helicopter that might never bring her back. Then she spoke. I believe trust is earned, she said, and we are earning it again together. The room exhaled as one. But she wasn't finished. She stepped forward just slightly, her voice lowering. My job, she said, isn't to force respect. It's to create an environment where respect grows naturally, from competence, from shared struggle, from watching each other rise above the limits placed on us. A pause. I've carried teammates out of combat zones who doubted me the day they met me, but by the time we left the field, they never doubted me again. Wolfenberger's eyes shone with something like pride. In the last 8 weeks, Sarah said, I've seen this facility transform, and if this board is willing, that transformation can spread to every unit in our branches. Wolfenberger folded her hands. Final proposal, Commander. Sarah clicked to the last slide. Integration Mentorship Initiative. Cross-unit mixed training cohorts. Psychological bias evaluation. And one final line. Operational unity through shared burden. This, she said softly, is the future, not because it's modern, not because it's progressive, but because it is effective. The room was silent. Then Wolfenberger stood. Put it to vote, she ordered. Hands raised. Unanimous. Unanimous. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel since her last deployment. Not pride. Not victory. Relief. Deep, bone-level relief. Wolfenberger approached her afterward, resting a hand on her shoulder. You've changed more than protocols, she said quietly. You've changed belief. Sarah looked away, emotion tightening her throat. I didn't do it alone. No, Wolfenberger agreed, but you lit the fuse. When Sarah stepped outside into the bright Wyoming daylight, the cold wind brushed the edges of her uniform like an old friend. The mountains stretched toward the sky, quiet, steady, timeless. She checked her phone. a single unread message from her daughter. "Proud of you, Mom, not because of what you endured, because of what you changed." Sarah smiled. She looked over the training field, where a new group of recruits gathered, men and women side by side, not perfect, not finished, but better than yesterday. Change was slow, messy, uncomfortable, but real. And as she stood there, watching the next generation form ranks beneath the morning sun, she finally understood something that had lingered at the edge of every decision she'd made over the last 8 weeks. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with weapons, but with patience, not in silence, but in steady, unwavering conviction. Not for glory, but for the world you leave behind. She took one last breath of the mountain air, letting it fill the space inside her that had once been heavy. Then she turned toward the day ahead, because her mission wasn't over. Not yet. Not ever. And as she walked forward, quiet, resolute, unshaken, the truth settled around her like armor. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.